Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we are going to be talking about the Pokemon 2019 press conference, which was really pretty exciting overall. I actually really like that they're doing these. They did one last year where they announced Pokemon Let's Go and Pokemon Quest, and I just really like that they're doing this. This year, obviously, we have Pokemon Sword and Shield coming out, so they didn't really touch on it at all, because especially when we have a Direct next week. But I just wanted to talk about the stuff that they did address, and there's a pretty decent handful of things that they talked about. We didn't see exactly a lot from any individual thing, but there's a lot of good stuff coming in the next year and some change. So yeah, let's get talking. So first and foremost is Detective Pikachu 2, essentially. With the success of the Detective Pikachu movie, they have apparently decided, hey, might as well make a sequel to the original game. So, we have Detective Pikachu, which apparently ended in a cliffhanger. I have to admit, I never beat it. I got to, honestly, probably about halfway through the game, and it's such a weird game. I do want to really beat it, so I will return to it before the sequel, but I digress. Anyway, so you have that on the 3DS, and now this new Detective Pikachu game will be on the Switch, and that's pretty much expected. They are moving wholesale into the Switch. Yeah, that's just what it is. Then the second thing I wanted to talk about real quick is, honestly, it's a weird thing. It really doesn't matter to most people, and the only reason why I actually thought it was interesting, which because it was really funny. So we had a Toho guy. Toho handled I think the distribution or like some of the licensing in Japan for Detective Pikachu. And apparently, one of their like top guys is going to be joining the Pokemon Company. I forget whether it was like a board member placement or whether he was just joining as an advisor or something. But a guy from Toho Company, which is also Toho Animation, which they do a lot of anime, he's joining the Pokemon Company, and suddenly he started plugging Godzilla, which they also license or produce or whatever. So that was a really weird moment. Ishihara, like, obviously it was scripted, I imagine, but like he apologized to Ishihara for plugging a movie that had absolutely nothing to do with Pokemon. Other than the fact that it had Ken Watanabe in it, which he was also in Detective Pikachu. Clearly scripted, but I thought it was a really funny and weird part of the press conference. Next up, I want to talk about the China aspect of this. When they first started the press conference, you had Ishihara kind of doing his spiel, and they also had an English translator. I think I recognize his voice. It was probably the same guy that does all the Pokemon stuff. So he was translating it into English. But then they also had a Chinese translator going off, and honestly, I thought it was pretty jarring at first because they had Ishihara talk, then the English translator, then the Chinese translator, and clearly this was a way for them to show that they are expanding their horizons. They are moving more into China, and they just wanted to become more open with that kind of thing. And they eventually moved to live translation, essentially, which is really, 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 really good. I gotta give mad props to both the English translator and the Chinese translator, because those, like, Japanese is really, like, Japanese specifically is really tough, and translating it to English is one thing. Like, that can be done, and it's fine, but doing it at the same time as the person's talking is a little more difficult. Then you have Chinese, and that's a whole other thing. So they had a Chinese guy come out too, and he was talking, and you basically had this poor woman having to translate Chinese into English in essentially real time. Even if there's a script, that's like really hard to do. In any event, with all this open door stuff going on with China, they have officially announced that Pokemon Quest is heading to China, which is pretty good. Good for them. I want to play more of that. I played a bunch on my Switch when they first announced it, and that kind of threw me off of playing the mobile version, but maybe I'll restart now that it's been a while since I've played Pokemon Quest. Maybe I'll restart on my phone and we just start fresh. Now, I'm talking about this stuff in kind of a different order. Some of this was in chronological order as far as what they were announcing, but I'm kind of moving some of this stuff around for my own sake so I could talk about the stuff that I really care about last. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is probably the weirdest part of the night, and that's their brand new mobile game, which they called Pokemon Sleep, and we didn't really get to see much of it. Well, we didn't get to see any of it, actually. They showed a bunch of people sleeping, they showed a bunch of people walking around, but they didn't really get to show anything of it. And I forget whether they actually gave it a release date or a release period, because some of these were like, oh, it's coming out in 2019 generally, or oh, it's coming out in 2020. But this one was weird. It's essentially a sleep tracking app that, like, they want to make sleeping fun, and I just don't get it. I guess I get it, but it's like they kind of compared it to Pokemon Go, which is like, oh, that's meant to keep people moving and getting people outside and active, and now they want to have a Pokemon app that basically it's trying to get people to sleep regularly and get good nights of sleep, and that's a very admirable thing to do. But it's a weird thing to... I don't know. I guess I'm not going to judge it too much before seeing anything at all about it. But yeah, that's a new app that's coming. We'll find out more about it later. Next, with Pokemon Sleep and Pokemon Go, actually, we also have this new device called Pokemon Plus. It's the Pokemon Go Plus Plus. And it's essentially a Pokemon Go Plus, also works with the new Sleep app, and it's basically like, so I imagine what it does. So like most phones have an app in general that has like, oh, it's a sleep tracker. I know that the iPhone has like a specific like bedtime function in its alarm settings, and that essentially tracks, and then that kind of goes to like the wellness app. But it's basically that but Pokemon, and I imagine if the phone and the device realize that you have not touched them for, 8 hours, then when you open up the new Sleep app, as well as Pokemon Go, it'll give you items or something like that. That's what I'm thinking is going to be like, but it's kind of dumb, honestly. I don't know. I don't like the name Pokemon Plus Plus. It's very derivative. Is that the word that I want to use? It's a little redundant anyways. In all honesty, I was expecting them to announce a Pokemon Go Plus Ball. What was it? The Pokeball Plus, but like a 2, because they really hammered in as far as set pieces go with the Pokeball and then the Great Ball. So I was expecting it to be like, oh, and now we have the Pokeball Plus 2 coming out for whatever in late 2019. I guess it doesn't matter. I'm probably not going to buy the Pokemon Go Plus Plus. I didn't buy Pokemon Go Plus to begin with. Ugh. In any event, we also got 2 new apps announced, and I'm honestly excited for both of them. The first of which, well, I guess this came second, but the first I'm going to talk about is Pokemon Masters. And it seems like it's basically a gacha game. It's the new game that's being produced by both the Pokemon Company and DNA. And it seems like they're trying to have it be like a gacha style. I'm trying to think of a good comparison. Maybe Fire Emblem Heroes. But like it's you team up with these heroes or masters rather throughout the Pokemon series. Brock, Misty, blah blah blah, and you basically fight other trainers or something. I really like the art. Ken Sugimori apparently drew up this whole art style thingamajigger for them to show off. And it also has voice acting, which honestly I'm fine with. I don't know whether they'll translate it or whether it'll just all be in Japanese and then they just have the subtitles. But I'm okay with it. Is what it is. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of excited for it though because it's different and it's certainly not the average Pokemon app that we've had, because we've had a lot of clickers, we've had some kind of baby games that are meant for specifically children. So this is kind of the first time that they've really like released a game that might be specifically to gouge people for money. We'll see how it goes. I might be losing some money. I guess other than Pokemon Go, but that's a whole other thing. Now, the final thing I wanted to talk about today is probably, honestly, the biggest thing in my opinion from this conference, and it's called Pokemon Home, and it's essentially a beefier version of Pokemon Bank. And honestly, I think one of the biggest things about this is that it's not only an app on the Switch, like a separate app. Actually, Pokemon Bank was a separate app from the normal games. Not only is it an app on the Switch, but it's also an app on your phone. An app on your phone. And that's pretty damn good. Like, that's super cool. And it means that you don't necessarily need to have your Switch on you at all times to utilize it. I know one of the things that I'm constantly worrying about is my Pokemon Bank subscription. Do I have a hair in my lip? I have something. I'm constantly worrying about my Pokemon Bank subscription. So if I can just check it on my phone and be like, whatever, this is cool, then we're all set. Some other features that they kind of mentioned. So obviously it's not Pokemon Bank, it's a beefier version of it, but apparently it connects with Pokemon Bank, so you'll be able to transfer all of your Pokemon from your 3DS games onward. And then it also connects with Pokemon Go, with Pokemon Let's Go, as well as Pokemon Sword and Shield eventually when they all come out. And honestly, this works similarly to how Bank worked with like previous generations, where it's like, oh, once you transfer it up to Bank, it's done and it has to stay in that new generation. So all Pokemon that get transferred from your 3DS to Pokemon Home can no longer go back to the 3DS. And that's, in my opinion, fine. You know what? If you're going to keep playing, you're going to keep playing. You got to be mindful of where you put your Pokemon anyways. And I believe the same can be said about the Pokemon Go, which is, again, very similar to Pokemon Go going to Pokemon Let's Go, because obviously you can't transfer your Pokemon from Pokemon Let's Go to Go. So that's another similar thing. I forget, though, so Pokemon Sword and Shield definitely can go back and forth. It's essentially a bank, so it's like, clearly you could transfer it from the most current generation up to the bank or home, and then back to it. But I forget if Let's Go can transfer back and forth. I don't think it can. I could be wrong about that. Now, an interesting thing about Pokemon Home is that it seems to be way more than Pokemon Bank, because they also allow for trading, and I get the feeling that there are probably other features that they have not talked about yet. They talk a lot about connectivity with other people, and there's not only just wireless, like, online trading, but there's also connectivity via other people right next to you. So essentially, if you have a bunch of Pokemon in your home, Pokemon Home app or whatever, you can trade them via your cell phone, and that seems really useful. Pokemon Home comes out in 2020, which is to be expected. Obviously, after Pokemon Bank, there was some weird stuff. They clearly want to check servers eventually, and clearly they want people to play the game before transferring Pokemon up to it. So that's to be expected. But it should be out probably before this time next year. In any event, this was a really fun conference. I actually hope that they do this every year, because I just really like hearing kind of the ins and outs, even if it's some boring stuff like, oh, the Toho guy joining the Pokemon Company so that they could team up or whatever. I like hearing about this kind of stuff. It makes it more of an experience rather than just, oh, here's a list of things that happened at their press briefing or something like that, or their shareholders meetings. It's way more interesting this way. Well then, those are all the things that I think were covered in the press conference. Those are my thoughts as well. Let me know what you thought of the Pokemon conference down below in the comment section. Are you disappointed? I know a lot of people thought that they would be announcing like full-fledged spin-offs and whatever. And they basically did. Detective Pikachu 2 is a spin-off. We didn't see any of it, but it's on a console and it's a full-on spin-off. So, whatever. We're getting stuff. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about it down below in the comments section. And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want to see more from me, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you see all the notifications when I upload. I will be doing another video like this next week when the new Sword and Shield information comes via a Sword and Shield Direct. That's next Wednesday, I believe, which is a week from now. So I will see you guys in another video, though. Prior to that, see you later.